Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast, and I am your host, Nora Muhammad. Thank you for joining me for episode 229 of the podcast. I'm glad to be back with you for another week of information, inspiration, and the lively art of conversation. In this episode 229, I want to talk about why we should not participate in jokes about ourselves. And this is not to say that we should not have a sense of humor. This is not to say that we should take ourselves too seriously. Obviously, with friends, true friends, and family, and some family, those you can trust, those that you can be vulnerable with, you can, be as self-effacing as you would like to be. However, I caution the listeners to this podcast to participate in your own mockery. And this can be in the organization that you're a part of. This could be at a workplace. This could be on a team. As Black folks anyway, we are already the butt of the world's jokes. And there might be occasions in social settings where you are the joke and the mockery is about you, and it can come in so many different forms. And you might say, well, how would I know if I'm being mocked? And you can gain insight from the language that a person uses, the tone that a person uses, the words, or even their body language, But if you find yourself uncomfortable, don't laugh. We laugh when things are funny, right? We smile when we are happy. But some of us may laugh because we are uncomfortable, and we may smile because we're uncomfortable. And this is, a reaction or a response that many of us have, but it's something that we should discipline ourselves around, because you may find that folks who are mocking you in a group setting or even in an individual one-on-one setting, they may be trying to test your will, test your resolve, test your self-esteem. And they are trying to ascertain whether you will betray the pride that you should have in yourself for their acceptance, for the ability to be close to power, the ability to be close to esteem. I have heard interviews where entertainers who, generally some of these people carry on with very large entourages, and they themselves have talked about the really despicable and humiliating things that people will do just to be close to them, right? And I'm not necessarily talking about a setting like that, but even in a setting when you're around somebody that has a light, that is a star, that has exceptional power and influence, do not participate in your own mockery. I can recall several times where, especially, I remember this one woman who was a unit director at a workplace, and she was someone that generally people really feared. I could tell that when she was around, they would tell each other, so-and-so's around, and they would scramble. They would sometimes straighten up and perform the job that they're actually there to perform. But part of what came with her presence is this joking behavior, and usually it was this woman joking about others, often joking about the appearance of others, joking about the appearance of women, specifically with it could be a complexion issue, it could be a beauty issue, a hair issue, a size issue. And so I remember thinking, I see her doing this with all of these women who have been here well before me. I'm sure I'm going to have my turn. For her to say something inappropriate to me in front of others, because that's what I saw her do to others. Now, when she would do this to others, I would see those individuals kind of laugh. They would put their head down, kind of smile, and they would take it. Sometimes they themselves join in their own mockery, and I just did not like it. And eventually the time came when it was my turn. And this is a woman who had power and position. But when she got to me and she tried to give me some of that behavior that she gave others, I pushed back. And I was younger than everyone else. I was newer than everyone else. But I knew that I'm not taking this. And it was not me wanting to be disrespectful to this older woman. It was not me trying to put on a show. But I am just not going to allow you to make fun of me in front of other people. And I do nothing. I say nothing. And so she tried it. And I just said, we're not going to do this. And, she looked at me, others looked at me, and I went about my business. I don't know what they said after I left. It wasn't important. But what was important to me is that they knew that she's not going to tolerate that and she's not going to participate in that. I don't know if that gave others strength or courage or what. It really wasn't about other people. It was about me and what I think about myself and what I'm not going to allow you to do and then expect my participation in it. Absolutely not. So, you should not betray your pride. The sarcasm, the condensation, the talking down, folks. And when they do this, they'll want to raise their voice or bring the attention of others to the conversation or to the incident, especially when it's not favorable to you. Folks may patronize you in a crowd of others, with the intended objective, perhaps, to make you look foolish, right? And then they'll tell you that you're taking it too serious. You're too serious. Have a sense of humor, right? And they'll demean you and then say, oh no, she's thin-skinned, she's too sensitive. And so they want you to laugh at yourself, right? But if you made the joke, they wouldn't find it funny. And so we have to be confident. We have to have love of self. We have to have self-esteem. And even if we don't feel strong in an area, again, I was in my early 20s, this woman was well known. She was engaged in this behavior with women who could have been my grandmother. And she could have been my grandmother. And I really didn't know what the outcome of me speaking up for myself was, but I knew I was going to have a turn. And I knew I was going to speak up for myself. And I was just going to let the chips fall where they may. And subsequent to that incident, this woman and I had additional interactions, none like that one ever again. But I also recognized she was very wise, and I would go to her and ask her questions, and we never had a problem with each other. But I had to set up boundaries and let people know what my boundaries were. And you have to establish boundaries and show others what your boundaries are. Do not laugh at yourself. Do not participate in someone else's mockery of you. Again, they'll want the joke about you and laugh, but they don't want that joke about them. And this kind of thing, it reminds me of from Back to the Future, Biff the bully and Marty McFly's father, George, and they went to school together, and Biff would always make fun of Marty McFly's father and kind of get him to participate in his own mockery and the humiliation. No. That's not something. We're not born and brought into this world for others to misuse us and for us to participate in the misusing and abusing of ourselves. And so when we're laughing it off, when we're being ridiculed, it's not an indication that, oh, she's just a good sport. No, it's a sign of weakness. It's a sign of insecurity. It's a display that she wants to fit in, and she will take this abuse and she will demean herself so that she can fit in, right? But I say there's no club, no job, no appointment, no team that should require mockery at your or my expense for us to gain entry. And we're tested in this way by others. Folks want to see, we participate in our own humiliation. And it really does not garner acceptance or trust from others because, people will see, she do this to herself. She's not going to stand for me. She doesn't even stand for herself, right? So people who have these manipulative tendencies, they'll recognize you as somebody that they can control, somebody they can unload sarcasm on again and again. And anytime they want to bully or harass you, you're just going to take it, right? And so you should stand up to the bully, regardless of the cost, and nothing is more valuable than your self-worth. So don't participate in mockery, not of others, but particularly not of yourself. Don't participate in jokes at your own expense. And if people think you're too serious, then you're just going to be the one in the group that's just too serious. But what you're not going to do is play with me. And we have to let other people know this. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Until next time, stay in peace.
We were brought here as a piece of property. And to keep that piece of property, it is to not allow the property to know the value of the property. What I mean by that, if you had known the history of yourself, you would not have been made a slave. And you won't be a slave now if you have a knowledge of yourself. It's hard to enslave a person that have equal knowledge with you. You just can't do it. And so this knowledge of yourself is the thing that will free you from what you have been suffering from.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, norahmuhammad.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@norahspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links in the show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.